Welcome, everyone. Today we travel back in time to the heart of ancient Mexico, to a place built upon a dream and floating upon water, a city of gold, temples, warriors, and gods. This is the story of the Aztecs and their shining city, Tenochtitlan, the city of the sun. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe for more stories that bring the past back to life. Now let's begin our journey through history. Long before the rise of empires and grand cities, a wandering tribe called the Mexica roamed the valleys of ancient Mexico. They were poor, exiled, and unwanted by other tribes, yet they carried with them something powerful, a prophecy. For generations, the Mexica wandered, through deserts, over mountains, and across swamps, searching for the sacred sign. They faced hunger, storms, and enemies, but their faith never broke. Then one morning, as the sun rose over Lake Texcoco, they saw it. An eagle stood proudly on a cactus, holding a snake in its beak, shining under the golden light. The prophecy had come true. That tiny island in the middle of the lake would become Tenochtitlan, one of the greatest cities ever built. The island was small and covered with reeds and mud. Most people would have called it unfit for living, but not the Mexica. With determination and brilliance, they began to build. They drove wooden stakes into the lake bed, creating foundations. They filled the gaps with stones, earth, and clay until solid ground emerged above the water. They built canals like streets, clear waterways where canoes replaced carriages. Bridges connected the island to the mainland, and along the canals, homes and gardens appeared. At night, the reflection of torches shimmered on the surface of the lake like stars fallen to earth. The Aztecs had transformed a swamp into a masterpiece, a city floating on water. To survive on the lake, the Aztecs created something ingenious. Chinampas, floating gardens made from reeds, mud, and willow trees. Each chinampa was like a small island. On it, they grew maize, beans, chilies, squash, and flowers. The roots reached deep into the lake, drawing nutrients from the water. Every day, farmers paddled their canoes between the floating fields, harvesting crops beneath the warm sun. It was not just farming, it was art. Tenochtitlan became a garden city, green and alive, surrounded by the glittering lake. Visitors from other lands marveled at the sight. They called it a jewel rising from the water. Over the years, Tenochtitlan grew in power and size. The Mexica allied with neighboring cities, forming the Triple Alliance, and soon their warriors marched across Mesoamerica. City after city fell under Aztec control. Tributes poured in: gold, jade, feathers, and cacao beans. The empire stretched from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean. At its heart stood Tenochtitlan, the capital of a civilization that ruled over millions. It was a place of art, science, and worship, a city that glittered like the sun itself. The great marketplace of Tlatelolco was said to host over 50,000 traders each day. Spices, fabrics, jewels, and even live birds filled the air with color and sound. The Aztecs had become not only conquerors, but creators. The Aztecs believed their world was the fifth creation, the fifth sun. The gods had made and destroyed worlds before, and to keep this one alive, they needed energy, the blood of life. To them, sacrifice was not cruelty, it was duty. The rising of the sun each morning was proof that their offerings kept the universe in balance. High atop the Templo Mayor, priests in bright feathers and painted faces offered prayers to the gods Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc, gods of the sun and rain. Drums echoed, incense filled the air. The people watched in awe and fear, believing that without these rituals, darkness would swallow the earth. It was a world guided by faith and fear of the end. At its peak, Tenochtitlan was home to more than 200,000 people, larger than most European cities of the time. There were aqueducts carrying fresh water from distant springs, clean streets lined with white limestone, schools, temples, and palaces decorated with gold and turquoise. Even Spanish chroniclers who later saw the city could hardly believe their eyes. They wrote, "It is the most beautiful city in the world, greater than anything in Spain." From the top of the Templo Mayor, one could see the snow-covered volcanoes in the distance, Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl, standing like sleeping giants watching over the valley. Tenochtitlan was not just a city, it was a dream made real. In 1519, far across the ocean, ships arrived on the coast of Veracruz. They carried men wearing metal armor, riding beasts no one in Mexico had ever seen. Horses. Their leader was Hernán Cortés, a Spanish conquistador seeking gold, power, and glory. When Emperor Moctezuma II heard about these strangers, he was troubled. Some said they were gods. Others warned they were destroyers. Moctezuma chose peace first. He sent gifts, gold, feathers, and precious stones. But greed burns brighter than friendship. Cortés wanted more, the empire itself. The Spaniards marched inland, joined by native enemies of the Aztecs, and soon they reached the shining gates of Tenochtitlan. At first, the meeting between Moctezuma and Cortés was filled with respect. The emperor welcomed the foreigners into his city, offering them food and shelter. But suspicion grew. The Spaniards saw temples filled with gold and wanted it all. They captured Moctezuma, turning the emperor of the Aztecs into their prisoner. Tension exploded. During a festival, the Spaniards attacked unarmed worshippers. The people rose in anger, and chaos filled the city. The Aztecs fought bravely, pushing the invaders out in what became known as La Noche Triste, the Night of Sorrows. Thousands of Spaniards and their allies were killed as they tried to flee across the bridges. But it was not the end. Cortés regrouped and prepared for revenge. Cortés returned with a vast army and a deadly new weapon, disease. Smallpox spread through Tenochtitlan, killing thousands, including Moctezuma himself. As the city weakened, the Spanish forces surrounded it, cutting off food and water. For 80 days, the Aztecs fought fiercely, refusing to surrender. But hunger, sickness, and exhaustion took their toll. Bridges burned, temples crumbled, the beautiful canals turned red. In August 1521, the city fell. The once glorious Tenochtitlan, the city of the sun, lay in ruins. Cortés stood among the ashes, claiming victory. But history would remember the Aztecs not for their fall, but for their greatness. On the ruins of Tenochtitlan, the Spaniards built a new city, Mexico City. They tore down temples and raised churches in their place. They tried to erase the old gods, the old songs, and the old ways. But beneath the streets of modern Mexico, the stones of Tenochtitlan still sleep. Archaeologists have uncovered the Templo Mayor, statues and carvings that tell the stories of a people who built a paradise on water. Their spirit never died. Today, the eagle, the cactus, and the snake, the ancient prophecy, stand proudly on the flag of Mexico. Words from the Aztec language, Nahuatl, live on in everyday life. Chocolate, tomato, avocado. The Aztecs taught the world that greatness comes not from wealth or power, but from vision, faith, and creation. Their sun may have set, but its light still shines. The story of the Aztecs is a story of dreams, courage, and loss. A reminder that even when empires fall, their spirit can live forever. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves history. Join us again next time as we uncover more forgotten worlds and timeless civilizations. Thank you for watching, and remember, every story of the past is a light for the future.